everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on why immersion cooling. My name is Ermine, and I'm happy to be your host for this exciting session. We have two experts with us today, Allison Boen, President of Hypertec's Immersion Cooling Consultant and Advisor, and Patrick Scatini, Sustainability Evangelist and VP of Global Sales at Hypertec. Allison and Patrick will guide us through immersion cooling, sharing insights on how this innovative technology is boosting data center efficiency in a sustainable way. Let's dive right in. Welcome, Allison. Could you please start by giving us an overview of the basic principles of immersion cooling and the key benefits it brings to data center operators?
Well, we don't have enough time for that, do we? But because it's so vast, and being in this industry for my 10-year immersion anniversary will be 2025. That's kind of mind-blowing, right? That I've been following this for that long. And whenever we first started to evangelize this as a possibility for you to be more energy efficient in the data center, we could start to espouse all of the benefits. It's not new technology. It's been around since the 80s. Some of the first Cray computers were cooled this way. And so we really start to say, you can recapture your power. You have 90% less cooling. You have 90% less water. You can save space. Your noise control, it's amazing. It starts to protect and extend the life of the equipment once you put it in this safe little, atmosphere that's like a mama's belly for amniotic fluid. And we would have all these amazing things to start to say, but no one anticipated AI and what it was going to do. So now the benefits really started changing, I would say, about a year ago.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Allison, for that insightful explanation. It's clear that immersion cooling offers some significant advantages. And now let's dive a bit deeper into how this technology compares to traditional cooling methods. And Patrick, could you walk us through how immersion cooling stacks up against traditional cooling techniques, particularly in terms of efficiency, energy saving, cost reduction? How does it make an impact in these key areas?
So first, let me start by saying thank you, Armine, for organizing. I'm very happy to be with my good friend, Allison, as we are both kind of the evangelists of this wonderful technology. But to go back to your question, Armine, when you look at the history of computing, and I'm glad Allison mentioned Cray, right? And their early 80s immersion cooling with their Cray X1 and the previous one. You look at the race of the computer goods, right? CPU increasing TDP and power consumption tremendously, especially for the past 5 years. It was fairly, I want to say fairly plain for 5 previous years, but the last 5 years have been skyrocketing with the increase of core. The arrival of the GPU in mass through AI, generative AI, LLM and everything, changed everything. So we were in a, let's say 150, 200 watts for any type of processor before. Today's 500 watts, right? GPU are skyrocketing to 1,000 watts and more. And suddenly the law of physics applied to its full extent, right? You cannot cool 1,000 watts with air cool. So liquid cooling, now I'm going to talk in general, is the only way to go. Is not an if. For the past few years, is just a when. For practicality, direct to chip had a little advantage for now in terms of installation because it's less disruptive, but doesn't bring as much sustainability, doesn't bring as much, in my opinion, benefit as immersion cooling will do. So when you compare all three, immersion cooling is more efficient. Immersion cooling is more sustainable. Immersion cooling takes less space. cost way less on a CapEx and an OpEx, especially on an OpEx level. If you take that as a total TCO and you put that on a 5, 10, 15 years, the advantage, the reduction in the TCO is tremendous with immersion cooling. So everything have been geared for immersion to take the lead. It's not the case today, but I can tell you in the next couple of years, you will see an hybrid model who could be immersion cooling is a part of direct to chip or what we call targeted flow to be the optimal system that everybody will use, especially in AI, especially in HPC. Someone who wants to run 3 servers with Exchange doesn't need that. So, like I said, immersion is by any mean check mark absolutely every single box.
Perfect. This is really insightful. And Allison, my next question is for you. What do you think? What are some key challenges companies face when implementing immersion cooling, and how can they overcome this?
Well, I think that, again, that has just evolved over the past, 15 years that we've really had some great projects that have been full immersion cooling projects, as well as then a lot of POCs within that and pilots. And so that has really changed. And it starts with like Hypertec and the leaders, the innovative leaders that really said, we're just going to embrace this. We have, with your immersion born equipment, truly is game changing. So as we start to see the next 2 to 3 years evolve with that, the fear being taken away from warranty and what happens when I immerse this server in this non-toxic biodegradable fluid, then how do we take consideration for the fact that millions of dollars worth of IT equipment are getting submerged. But that's just the point. It literally is, like Patrick said, it's the most sustainable, and I want to say future-proof solution that there is. Yes, direct to chip, we know it has a strong grip on the market. It is easy, it's digestible. You can, put it next to your air, but at some point you're gonna, need to look at the possibility of going ahead and trying a pilot of single phase immersion, because it's moving so quickly. It's moving so fast. I mean, the conversation that we have all the time are, okay, I'm using direct to chip right now. I'm already at 120 kW. My next predictions, I don't know how I'm going to handle this. And so what we say is, look, make room on your data center, floor for, to dive into immersion cooling, because you're going to really appreciate that in about 2 years as we evolve. Like Patrick mentioned, some of the directed flow techniques and some of the next generation chips. All of the chip manufacturers are already in this. We all know it. They just aren't talking about it. So.
Yes, absolutely. And my next question is for both of you, actually. Could you share some real world examples of companies that have already adopted immersion cooling that you can share with us? Patrick?
So before I answer that, just to complement what Allison was mentioning with the previous question. When Hypertec decided to go in full immersion cooling, and as Allison kindly mentioned, we went with an immersion board. That's when we developed an entire product line who was dedicated to immersion. So no readiness, no retrofit is made to have the most performance, the most density, and every benefit to do with it. Now to go back to your question that you just asked, we know that there is multiple companies who are using immersion cooling. We have been public with a company in the geosysmic area, it's called DUG, Down Under Geosysmic, where we install thousands of nodes in there. Funny enough, I think Allison will join that in one of the data centers in Houston, Skybox, with Element Critical. And from the get-go, Doug decided that immersion cooling was the way to go because he was a saver in terms of costs, a saver in terms of space. They have thousands and thousands of nodes in their area where they maximize the power was and the space and was given to them. And after that, you have people, and we didn't work with them. The Tencent of the world, for example, the Alibaba of the world, already are using the TikTok of the world, are using immersion cooling at extremely large scale. And there is a reason for that, right?
Yeah.
It's because it's the future. We talk about briefly about, the advantage, and to go back, everybody, all of us, especially in the IT and the student world and the business world, everybody use a ChatGPT, right, a Claude or whatever to make requests. When people understand that every time you make a prompt with ChatGPT, you use anywhere between 500 milliliter and 2 liters of water, you can question yourself of the million of requests who are made on a daily basis, right? And the impact on the environment. When you are in immersion cooling, you don't consume any water, like Allison mentioned. It's close to zero, and that was one of the huge benefits. So you ask, I think Allison as a name. We have plenty of other customers that unfortunately we cannot mention, but we have customers in financial services, in national laboratory, in research, who are using immersion cooling at scale today. But because of NDA, for now, we cannot mention them, but they will be publicly named, maybe supercomputing, who's in 20 days, I guess, from today, or can't remember, 19 days. So Allison, just on your side, I know you know a few as well, so.
Yeah, I think that's where, everybody's under NDA. Hush, hush, I'll have to kill you if I tell you, kind of thing. So, but there is a lot. Yeah, we do know a lot of oil and gas were some of the first embracers of this for a lot of that hard crunching that comes out. Again, you mentioned Doug, and in Australia, they're like plotting not only the ocean floor at one location, they're plotting the solar system. So it's amazing. But what I do think now, again, mentioning when I first said AI is changing things, these are traditionally data centers and enterprise data centers that haven't went over 8 or 10 K or maybe 20, 30 kW per rack for years. And now here they're having these AI workloads show up at 100 kW per rack, and they're just like, what are we going to do with this? Like, we're going to strand our power. How are we going to cool this in this air cooled environment? So i.e. this is where direct to chip has kicked in as a fast fix, although I don't necessarily think it's very fast. But this is the evangelizing that comes down the pipe from where I live and breathe is look at deploying. You literally have probably a year to make a decision. We're not at a want to space anymore with liquid cooling. We're at a have to space. You have to make a decision whether you're going to do direct to chip technology or you're going to do full immersion right now to receive all of this high density AI that's coming in. So the landscape is changing. Yes, there's a lot of financial institutions we can't talk about that are deploying it, but there's a lot of different AI applications. You mentioned TikTok. I mean, it's so funny that there's a lot of different companies that we wouldn't have expected now are deploying this technology.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And as you've been in the industry for so many years, what advice would you give to those companies who are considering immersion cooling but still are uncertain?
you know, I really like, so again, another case study is the CGG, and again, out of Houston. Houston is the hub of immersion, by the way. You know,
Yes.
so we have the shell deployment, which part of the reason that they did that is because they were maxed out in their data hall at 7 megawatt. And so they started trying to recapture some of that power, and their PUE now is 1.1. And that's the only reason why it's still that bad is because they have air on the other side, right, of the room. So, but if you look at, I enjoyed visiting the CGG group. They're a bunch of you know, very experienced IT directors, you know, ops guys that are working in there every day. It's as clean as a whistle. Like, you won't find a drop in this entire data hall of full immersion cooling. You won't find a drop of fluid at all anywhere. And when you start to ask them those questions, like, okay, like, you know, the is it messy? And, you know, they're just like, no, you know, you literally, the good thing is we don't even hardly have to work on this. You see this server right here? It's been in there for 7 years. We've not moved it. You know what I'm saying? So this is some of the benefits that is actually right here is the mind block. If you start to have conversations with the ones that are daily for years, that data center has been running in full immersion since 2010, some of it using the same fluid, guys. So honestly, that's the kind of things that need to be talked about. It's really not messy. If you spill some, you clean it up, here's a rag. It's not, you know, and that's kind of where sometimes we get in our heads about that, moving and adopting and changing the way that we've been doing things for 40 years. That's what we're doing. I'm going to steal something that Vertiv said at the Yada up on at the Liquid Cooling Coalition Pavilion. They said, we are at the moment where we are moving from horses to cars. What? Horses to cars. Now, if that doesn't put it in perspective to you, I don't know what does. But we've been doing the data center, and so data center, liquid cooling. What? Wait a minute. Horses to cars. That is the dynamic shift that's going on right now in our data centers. It's like night and day. And when it comes out of Greg Stover with Vertiv's mouth, you know that we mean business in the infrastructure environment. But that's how much of a dynamic change we are all living and breathing in right now.
Wow. Horses to cars. This is amazing. So Patrick, on your end, what advice would you give to those who are considering immersion cooling, but are still on the fence?
The first advice is give me a call. That's the first thing I would say. Give me a call, and I'm going to give you a good perspective of why you should go to immersion cooling. Like I said at the beginning, not everybody has maybe the profile, right, or the usage, but the people usually who come to us are the exact candidate, right? I'm glad Allison mentioned CGG now is Veridiant, right? They were a pioneer of immersion cooling 6-7 years ago with the largest GPU cluster and in immersion cooling. And for the people who have this, oh, it's messy, it's going to fail, whatever, immersion cooling at the lowest failure rate because the system is cocooned to work in symbiosis with the liquid, right? Every part you can eat in a system, and it's not just the CPU, the memory, the VR, the PCI Express card, usually the drive don't eat as much, are taken care of by the immersion cooling, right? It's like the liquid wrap every single component. You have the people, it's not complicated. God doesn't make more land. Everybody's running out of space. The electricity is starting to become an issue. You mentioned, Allison, right? I think Shell is a very good example when you have the possibility to visit their data center. You will see you enter, you have air cool. After that, you have direct to chip. And at the end now, you have immersion cooling. And that here is a perfect segue of where the technology is going, right? And when you don't run after, maybe you don't run out of power, there is the water, right? We don't see it as much here, except in California and in Texas, as I'm living in Texas, and Allison as well. You can't really put water on your lawn as much as you want. In California, you can't put any water, so you grow cactus. Think about that. Europe is already much in advance on that. So the water is going to become an issue for everyone. And immersion cooling is there to fix the issue. So the advice we can give to people is talk to specialists. Talk to the Allison of the world. She's one of the most renowned person in the immersion cooling world. Talk to the Hypertec of the world, as we are fully engaged at every aspect of the development, even our production building, to be on a sustainable path and to have the highest standard of ESG with special packaging, try to take off some transportation truck out of the road when we deliver the customer, to composite material eventually made out of plastic coming from the ocean, so on and so forth. Talk to us. We will give you a very good idea of what immersion cooling is, all their advantage, and we briefly glaze on the advantage. The advantage, they are your building, if you build a new building, will cost you a fraction of the cost, maybe 50% at best. The consumption of power, the density, 10x the density compared to the average air-cooled rack of today, and so on and so forth. CapEx, OpEx, you build a future that your kids will grow up, right? And not just on the rocks. They will have a real planet with tree and grass. What's not to like? Right? So talk to the specialist, ping my name, ping Allison name, go to Hypertec website, go to the Alcatex website. We are here to help you and to change the world one data center at a time.
I like it. One data center at a time. Yeah.
That is great. Thank you so much. And thank you, Patrick and Allison, for sharing such valuable insights with us. Do you have any last thoughts you would like to share with our audience? And what are the best channels for people to reach out to you in case they have questions or need more information? Patrick partially covered that part. Just type Allison and Patrick. Yeah, any specific channels that you would like to highlight?
So I got to give a shout out to the OCP, which I just love our community, the liquid and immersion community. It's the greatest ever. All of the players in the industry and then some come together to help lift up this technology and to set standardizations, which also help people to then be able to move into that space with a little bit more ease. The Liquid Cooling Coalition as well, who's out of Washington, D.C., trying to get the ear of the Department of Energy for policy and how we literally as well make a path for liquid cooling for AI. The one thing that was recently released, if you missed it at the OCP Summit, and Patrick, you said it earlier about a TCO. So it's kind of my baby. I am now part of community outreach. I'm the room mom of Immersion Cooling. So yeah, I'm the event planner. I love it. But my original work stream was the TCO. And that was, they just did the beta, released the beta. So if you want to see it, the beauty of that is that it's not a sales tool. It was born out of community support. We have we have the liquid players, we have the IT, we have the infrastructure, we have the tank and technology providers, all coming together to create this TCO calculator that now is available. And you can look, depending on even what zone of the world you live in, and what everything you can plug in all of your information and look at air versus immersion from an agnostic TCO perspective. And it is available. So reach out to me, ping me, on LinkedIn or whatever if you want to get the link to that. But really, those are the things that are really. It's the reason why that was created is it's almost too hard to believe. You almost have to see it in black and white, the advantages of immersion cooling. So
I agree 150% with you, Allison. in addition, and to go back, is we are a community. And one of the questions prior, right, were the order of adoption. If you step back 3-4 years ago, the immersion ecosystem was not as strong as it is today. I can tell you that we continuously meet with each other, right? The tank vendor, the oil vendor, the hardware maker, the people who make the cable, who go in immersion cooling, the folks who will do the implementation. OCP was a perfect example. I think supercomputing will be another example this year. The force is strong with immersion cooling, right? And it's getting stronger by the day because of this very tight community. We work with each other constantly to improve immersion cooling to be the only way, right? I like the Mandalorian. And this is the way. There is no other way. This is the way. Immersion cooling will be the way. So again, thank you, Allison, Arminet, my bad, for organizing the webinar. I think we could stay, Allison and I, we could stay for an hour on that and continue to talk nonstop, right? But hopefully we gave you a glimpse for everybody who's going to watch the webinar of getting excited, because it's exciting, right? Like you mentioned, we went from the horse to the car, but in fact, we just jumped not on a Model T, we just jumped on a EV super hypercar.
I like it.
In a blink of an eye, right?
Yeah, perfect scenario, perfect example.
Thank you so much. Thank you for finding time and joining us in today's webinar. Your insights are so valuable, and I want to thank to everyone who joined us in this webinar. We hope that you found this helpful. And if you have any questions or need further information, please reach out to us by visiting hypertec.com, or you can just find us, Allison and Patrick, on LinkedIn. Thank you so much. See you again.
Thank you.